Hey everybody, my name is Roger Thompson, and today I'm going to share a small story with you about how a friend of mine and myself took a wrong bus on our second morning in Iraq, and it led not only to a huge misunderstanding, but also led to a small security breach at a prison compound for high-value detainees that not a lot of people even knew existed. When we got there at Baghdad International Airport, there's a circle of bases that surrounds the airport, and it's known as the Victory Base Complex. And there's 7 or 8 bases, or it was at the time in 2009. You had several bases. The one that had the biggest PX was at Camp Liberty. And we were over here at Camp Striker. They had a small PX where we grabbed a few things, but we had like a week before we was getting helicoptered out to our patrol base, Cop Dolan. And we wanted to try to get as many supplies out there as we could when we went. So somebody told us that, hey, if you guys want to, catch the bus to Liberty, it runs right by the PX first thing in the morning, and you guys can ride. It takes about an hour to get there, an hour to get back. We said, hey, cool, we'll do that. So we go eat breakfast the next morning. When we do, we go over to the little gazebo that's supposed to be the bus stop, and there's 5 or 6 guys already there, and they're all in their full kit. They've got their vest on, they got their helmet on, they got their rifle, all their magazine pouches are loaded and stuff. It's like, oh, these guys must be getting ready to go on patrol or something. I mean, who knows, They didn't say a word to us. We didn't talk to them. Bus pulls up, we get on it. Whenever we get on it, we sit right behind them, and it pulls up to a gate. That's normal for any military installation. We get our ID cards out, they're getting theirs out, and everybody's holding their ID cards up. Well, Sentry gets on the bus at the gate, and she looks around, and she sees those guys sitting there. She points at them, and she's laughing. She says, "You're late, and you're late, and you're late, and you guys are good." And she just kind of brushed us off and gets off the bus. The bus pulls right on through the gate. Well, once it pulls around, me and my buddy, we're sitting in the back of the bus, and we're looking. Hey, I don't see a PX here. It must be at the next place. Well, after sitting there for like 10 minutes, the bus driver, he could barely speak English, but he turns around and he says, "Hey, you guys gonna get off the bus or what?" And we're like, "No, man, we're waiting till you get to the PX." And he says, "You guys got a cropper badge?" So, what's a cropper badge? Well, mind you, he could barely speak English, but he managed to get "oh shit" out of his mouth. Well, he says, "All right." So he closes the bus door. You had to show your ID leaving this facility too. Seems like a pretty good security idea. So here goes the sergeant of the guard for Camp Cropper. And he says, "Guys, let me see Cropper badge so y'all can get out of here." And I was like, "We don't have one, man." He goes, "What do you mean you don't have one?" I was like, "We're just trying to get to the PX. We have no idea what a Cropper badge is. This is our second day here." And he says, "You guys don't have a Cropper badge." And, "No, Sergeant, we don't." And he said, "Oh shit." So he goes and gets his boss, which is the NCOIC of the base there. And he comes up to me and he's like, "So you guys don't have Cropper badges? I'm not understanding this." He's like, "Nope." I was like, "We got on the bus over here at the PX this morning. We was trying to get to Liberty, and somehow or another, we got on the wrong bus, and we don't know what happened." He says, "Well, okay, well, how'd you get on?" I said, "You see that specialist right there?" He said, "Mm-hmm." I said, "She let us on. She come on the bus, looked at the 3 or 4 guys in front of us, told them they were late, waved us on, and then she went back in the guard shack." So he went and got her. He comes back, and he's yelling at us, and then he starts yelling at her because she's the one that let us on. So he said, "You guys are good, but y'all don't ever come back here. You got that?" It's like, "Hey, no problem. We're going to get out of here." So then the bus leaves, and it leaves. Me and my buddy look behind out the back window, and you can see her in the middle of the street doing push-ups while he's still giving her a great ear beating. Now, that could have been a rather touchy situation considering you have to have that badge. We made it to the PX that day, but we learned a lot. And what did we learn out of that? Well, number one, if you've been in country for less than 2 days, make sure you're getting on the right bus. I mean, we didn't know there was multiple buses. Somebody could have told us that. Those buses going to places like that, maybe they could have had a different staging area or different bus stop, if you will. The guys that was in front of us, they had probably been there for a while. They probably worked together. They probably knew most of the familiar faces on that place because it was a small compound, so you wouldn't think that many people worked there. At least I wouldn't. So they should have turned to us and said, hey, you guys sure you know where you're going? Because we could say, no, man, we're going to the PX. And they could be like, oh, not this bus, dude. So you don't ever know. But the biggest thing that comes from that is always do your job. That sentry should not have let us on without a cropper badge. When you're a sentry and you're guarding something, you are responsible for everything there. And she failed to do that morning by waving us on. It almost ended up getting us in trouble. I'm sure it got her in trouble, I don't know how much. But always do your job. And no matter what, whatever you do, and I still don't know what one is, but don't forget that cropper badge.